check it. For my ladies that walk by faith, live by the word, we don't self-medicate with my Jesus. One thing's for sure, he gives peace, grace, and love galore. We don't care about your age or your background. Any topic that they want is not outbound. With testimonies to rock your core, he gives concert, faithful and so secure. Woo! Yeah, come on.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Constant Faithful Secure. Today we are going to be sharing a lot about God's faithfulness in terms of reconciliation. You know, as Christian women, we have a script of how our lives are going to be. And if we follow this script and follow the ways of the Bible, then it must look a particular way. But sometimes life and suffering happens, and we have to trust that God is in control. Today I have with me Catherine Snyder. I'm going to be calling her Auntie Catherine for you guys who are not used to the Jamaican thing. Some respect on it. It's my auntie,
Yes.
Auntie Catherine. We're going to be talking with her today about her own experience of resilience in reconciliation and God being faithful and the challenges that come with that. So, welcome.
Thanks, Stacy.
So good to have you here. So I spoke with you before today and asked you to kind of give me a background about your life. And you told me you grew up in a Christian home by name. And, you know, you would have had an opportunity to give your life to the Lord in about high school time. And then you said that you really would consider your true conversion experience to have happened in college, in your third year, actually.
Right.
After a failed relationship.
Yeah.
And some experimentation with drugs. So now you're a Christian and you're a part of a church, and what happens?
So the first time I go to this church as a new believer, this very handsome man is preaching. And I say, wow, I like him. But then I saw his girlfriend. I was like, oh, no, I don't like him. But eventually he asked me out. We got married. 2 weeks later, we moved to Jamaica, which I told you I don't recommend to anyone just because of all the adjustments in your first year of marriage and also in a new culture. So we came to Jamaica in 1985 and a lot of zeal, more zeal than wisdom. But God really has a call on our lives, and He kept us here. He kept us here for a lifetime. Yeah, still here.
So tell us about the good years of marriage. Tell us about those good years.
I'm sorry and sad to say that there really were not a lot of good years. It was a very, very difficult marriage. I think that I was really at a point of desperation. That's never a good, well, I can't say it's never a good place to be, but desperate for a relationship. I really felt like marriage was an idol. It took years for me to come and then learn that God is my source. So really through that very difficult and then broken relationship, God taught me that He is my source. It's not in a man, it's not in a marriage, but He is my source for identity, for provision, for protection, provision. He is my source. So all things do work together for good, but the marriage was hard, really hard.
So take us through the signs of marriage being hard and what happened.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so we're talking about a almost 20-something year process. So I really believe that I had a very wrong idea of what submission was.
Okay.
So I was like, whatever he thinks, that's what I submit to. I'm a little embarrassed to say that now, but that's what I thought. I thought that was the godly Christian way to be. So I really then, you can figure out what the consequence of that is. I really lost my identity in who I was. And then it came to a point, Stacy, really of an emotional, almost, it was an emotional breakdown because I wasn't taking care of myself. I mean, that meant emotionally, physically, socially, spiritually. And things just progressed. We just did not grow together. We grew apart, just apart, apart, apart. And people looking on the outside would see me smiling, but on the inside, I was so broken, so weeping, so disappointing, crying out to God for help. Oh God, please send help, please send help, please send help.
Help with what exactly?
My prayer was help for a healthy marriage. Help. That was my prayer for years. I mean, even a 40-day fast. So many times of prayer, so many times of fasting, so many books read, so many prayer sessions, crying out to girlfriends. I mean, eventually it came to a point where there was some indiscretion on my part. There wasn't an affair, but there was a fantasy. So there was an affair in my mind, which the Lord exposed, and I had to get help.
Okay.
And there were some accusations about my mental health. I had to see a Christian psychologist. So that helped me to then get on track as far as my health. The Lord also brought a very important book into my life called The Emotionally Destructive Relationship. I think that's the right title, but it's by Leslie Vernick.
Okay.
And that helped me to determine, and if anyone gets a hold of that book, that will help you determine if your relationship is it disappointing or is it destructive?
Oh,
Yeah.
what's the difference? Tell me.
Okay, so we all will face disappointments, right? It's not what we expected. Okay, but so with adjustment or with prayer or with maybe some counseling, we can like get over those disappointments. A destructive relationship is where then it is abusive. On a destructive relationship, there is abuse. So it takes a different type of approach. Maybe there's some deeper hurts, a longer process, right? You may need to step back, like it with separation or even possibly divorce, if a relationship is destructive. Yeah.
So you read this book. What was your marriage? Destructive or disappointing?
There were both. Well,
Okay.
I would think if a marriage is destructive, it's definitely going to be disappointing. But I did see some destructive characteristics and traits, which I then had the confidence, and also I know I was led by the Lord, and it was the most difficult decision that I think I've ever made, and that was to separate. And I did it. It wasn't a snap decision. I mean, I remember one time hearing the Lord say, 5 years. And then I remember another time the Lord say, 3 years. So it was a process, and it wasn't even my own decision. I was submitted to a counselor who was helping me to walk through, a Christian counselor that was helping me, to walk through, so that it wasn't an emotional, like, I hate this, I don't like this, I can't deal with this anymore. Yeah, so. Yeah.
That's interesting because I'm sure persons who are listening would wonder, how were you able to get to that place where you made that decision, and what were your thoughts? What were your thoughts as you were going through that?
So many, of course, but I had to like put into writing, and I had to communicate to my husband the reasons why I was so unhappy, and could there be change? And I felt so strong that we needed change, we needed counseling. And I'm sorry to say that there was a resistance to all those things. Many times, I was the problem, it was me. And there's a good Jamaican saying that it takes two hands to clap, right? Two hands to clap. So it really wasn't until after the separation that then he could see, okay, yes, we're going to need a third party. And then, yeah, but I'm kind of jumping ahead.
No, it's so good. I'm learning so much. So now you're separated.
Yes.
Do you believe you're going to be reconciled, and how do you get to that place of what made you believe, if you did believe?
Okay. First, one thing I really want to say that I think is important is that until we walk through these life experiences, I think as Christians, we can often quickly judge other women or other couples that are going through separation or divorce. We think, oh, they haven't tried hard enough. They're not forgiving enough if they'd only do this. And until you walk through it, you really don't understand. And I know that was for me. I have so much more compassion now, for people with broken relationships, and you just get it, and you realize, no, they probably have tried to do everything that they can do, and it just can't. No. So. You have to remind me again what the question was.
No, that was a good point you
yeah.
made. I was asking you though, as you get to the point, I mean, you're now a Christian,
Right.
You're both missionaries, and you're at the point where you're deciding to separate.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, maybe even experiencing people being like,
Yes.
"What you mean?
Right.
How
Absolutely.
are you?" So when you separate, how do you know that you can reconcile? And if you did, how did you come? No. Okay.
No. And so my experience was also is how key it is for you to hear what God is saying to you. Because what I found was that you could find every opinion upon the spectrum from godly friends, and also from like godly authors and godly writers.
Yes.
So, I mean, you can hear from never, ever separate, never under any circumstance, all the way across the spectrum to what feels good, do it. And so I was like, oh, then you have that weight of that responsibility. Like, okay, God, what are you saying to me? Because I believe in God's word that, I mean, even if there is adultery, which we know God's word says you can separate, there's also, God could also be saying to you, go back, forgive, go back. So I had to dig in, and it's like, God, what are you saying? In the early weeks and months of separation, I thought, this is it. There's hope for marriage again, and I really was thinking that it may lead to divorce, and then I'd be free. As I wrestled with it, Stacy, the Lord brought me to, if you separate, because and for me that was God saying that it could come to that, that a relationship could come to that. So if you separate, you must remain that way and not marry again. So it was like, whoa, okay, God. And so I had to come to that place where I was going to be in that state, I was going to be believing God for restoration, reconciliation. If he then chose to divorce, then I wouldn't really have a choice then if it was his decision. But I was going to stay like that. So yeah.
So take us through that with you and God this time. Because how long were you in this place of reconciliation? Well, separation. I'm sorry. How long were you in this place of separation, and what was God? How was God faithful and constant through that?
So I think it was 2010 that I separated, and I was still in Manchester. In 2013, I made a move to Kingston And then we reconciled in 2015. So it was about a 5 year,
A
a 5
5
year
year.
process.
Wait, you
Yeah.
said God told you that though?
Well, no, actually, the 5 years was don't separate for yeah,
Oh.
wait 5 years before you make a move to separate,
Okay.
and then an additional. I heard 3, like wait 3 years. So yeah.
Okay. So yes, so while these 5 years, talk
Yeah.
to me about these 5 years, you and God.
Wow. So it would have been in that 5 years that God was after me, my healing, and my relationship with Him. So it was during that time that God really established, no, this is your life verse. This is your life lesson. I am your source. I'm your source for love. So receive it. I'm your source for provision. I'm your source for protection and identity. So he began to speak that and establish that. I learned so much from Mike Bickle and the Song of Songs, and about how God is calling us in this hour to be lovers of Him, right? Lovers of Him. I also walked very closely with a Christian counselor and mentor, Reverend Dr. Maria Harbison, and she was someone that I could be completely honest, and we need that. I mean, I could speak to her about struggles, sexual struggles, and accountability, and yeah, yeah. And then I just kept firm, in what I felt that God had said, and I yes, there were invitations from my husband to move back in. There were invitations to just why don't you just come back? And it's like, no, it doesn't make sense unless we get these things worked out. I can't do that. And I kept saying, I know we need counseling. I know we need counseling. So a funny thing happened. Can I tell you that?
Yes. We love funny stories
Okay.
here.
Yeah. I said I really enjoyed traveling, and I just happened to say this. If somebody gave me an airplane ticket this morning, I'd be on a plane this afternoon. Well, my husband emailed me and said, I'd like to buy you a ticket to come up and we'll go to this conference for counseling. And it's like, oh man, that word just came out of my mouth, and it's like, okay, I'll come. I'll come. So, I mean, it didn't really work out, the whole counseling and thing that weekend. It was very disappointing, but we were making the steps, and then eventually we tried something else, ministry in Colorado, didn't work out. And then eventually he made the decision to come to Jamaica, and we went through family life ministry, and yep, we got some counseling, right? And it was still very difficult. It wasn't a fairy tale after that. Marriage is hard, but being single is hard. Divorce is hard. Separation is hard. I was encouraged this week that, maybe as a counselor, maybe you know this, choose your hard.
Choose your heart.
Choose your hard. Make your choice. It's hard.
So I have a question. So I remember something.
Yes.
I remember once, I don't know if it was you who told me or my dad that he was gonna come in. You were giving him a ride to work or something. He's gonna come into the front, and you were like, I'm really believing God for the reconciliation of my marriage. And when you told me, my heart, I was like, what faith?
Yeah.
What faith to believe and to even act it out, even while it wasn't here. How were you able to do that?
That's funny. People might be wondering what. For me, I mean, as a that was like a protection for me. That so I wouldn't want to be seen with a male in the front seat, right? So that's why I asked your dad to sit in the back. I asked any man, well, Okay, thank you.
No, because for me, and
Yeah.
I'll let you answer the question.
Yeah.
For me, it was a step,
Yeah.
a marker of faith.
Yes.
That's what it sounded like to me. It didn't even sound weird to me. And for those listening, you know, it's between you
Yeah.
and the Lord. But
Right.
what I heard as somebody who looked
Yeah.
up to you was, I
Yeah.
am trusting God
Yeah.
for something. And
I
so I will
was.
live in a way that
I was.
exemplifies that I'm trusting God. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious, how were you able to do that?
Stacy, I don't know. I mean, I I really feel like inside of me has always been a hope or um, a happy, healthy relationship. It's there. I know God put it there.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
so yeah. And I think he didn't let me let it go. Like I never got the word that I was to let it go. I never got that. Even though I believe that there were biblical precedents that I could have proceeded, and people could argue, you know, about that. But for me, I saw like when there is when a husband does not provide in a certain way for their wife, like financially or emotionally, I believe that that's part of the whole care that God intends that a husband has for a wife. So, but I never, I could never, I just couldn't do it. And I know that that was the Lord. So, you know, when he then came for counseling, and then that was like around, it was in December. So then at
December of what year?
Christmas of 2015. And then, you know, we were talking some things through, and I just felt like, okay, I'm in. I chose my heart.
You chose your
I
heart.
chose my heart. Yeah.
What was God ministering to you? You said he ministered to you that he's a provider.
Yeah.
He's your source.
Yes.
He's your identity.
Yes.
What did he minister to you to be open to reconciliation?
Wow.
Because you mentioned you had grounds.
Yeah.
And right now in 2023, people are leaving if you breathe wrong. Like we're just out of marriages. I saw somebody post on a status, he's seeing so many marriages end in divorce monthly. You know, so my demographic is people are leaving like this. And now that you tell me you have grounds, why reconcile?
You know, wow. I just felt that it was the right thing to do, that God loves marriage, and that God was there. He was going to help us through. Yeah, that it was just the right thing to do. That's, I think that's all I can say.
Like, listen, the right thing
It's
to do.
the right thing to do.
We're sticking through it. We're sticking through it. So now it's 2015, you said?
Yeah.
And you're chosen to reconcile.
Yeah.
What happens next?
What happens next? Disappointment. Yeah. I really disappointment, but yet growth. Because let me tell you, I had to come to a place where I had to accept him for who he was. This is how he is. This is how it's going to be. And when I reached that point of total acceptance, I believe that that's where God wanted me to be. Yeah, I had to just accept it. Like, I think the things that I wanted so much, like the intimacy, and I wanted, for me, I wanted long conversations, look me in the eye. I wanted date night. I wanted planning, you know, let's sit and plan, and I wanted ministry together, you know, I wanted a partnership. And I had to come to the point where, okay, this is what you want. It's not happening. Can you just accept him and love him just for where he's at? Yeah.
It's like I have questions, but it's like I have to sit with that because that's not the culture right now.
Yeah.
If you are not doing what I want, especially when you're asking for legitimate needs like ministry together. I mean, come on, that's real spiritual.
And intimacy.
And intimacy.
Isn't that what marriage is about?
And you're choosing to accept him. And so you get to this place of acceptance, and then life changes again.
It changes again.
What is that change?
My husband passed away unexpectedly. Yeah. We didn't know that he had some serious health issues. He didn't want to ever talk about it, didn't want to go to the doctor. And so, a heart attack, embolism. And it was like, oh, wow, God. I felt like I'm on this road. I didn't choose to go down this road, but now I'm on this road. And it's like, okay, God.
So he passes away.
Yeah.
How is God faithful? Is God faithful?
Yeah.
What's God doing?
Yeah. I don't know the answers to all that. But I do know that he's faithful. I know he's after us, and I know he is still that source for love. And, however he writes the story in the end, I don't know. That's up to him. But I am, I heard one of your guests talk about surrender. And so that's where I am. I was raising my hands. I'm surrendered. Yeah.
I started the episode by saying, we have a script.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you had a script for your life.
Sure.
Especially as you became a Christian and you were following biblical principles. And the script changed a couple times. The director had some, updates to the script. Would you say that you are secure in him?
Yes.
How so?
I think at this point in my life, I know that he can be everything for me, that I don't have to find that in a man. I mean, if he chooses to bring that, then it would be brata, or it would be, I would see him loving me. I would see God loving me through that relationship. Different. So yes, I am secure in him and his love and his plan. Yeah.
God is so good.
He's good.
God is so good. That ministers to me.
Good.
That when he is the source, everything else is extra. And we get to see him through those things. Thank you so much for sharing.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you for tuning into another episode of Constant, Faithful, Secure. If you found anything encouraging or any nugget of value, please let us know. Leave a comment. Share it with a friend. Join our IG community. Subscribe so you do not miss any more of these amazing stories. Remember, he is constant. He is so faithful, and so we can be secure. God bless. Bye.
Grace and love galore. We don't care about your age or your background. Any topic that they want is not outbound. With testimonies to rock your core. He is constant, faithful, and so secure. Woo! Yeah, come on. Yeah, that's right.